Brendan Burns.
Mr Speaker, the speech that I'm embarking on in this, the third reading of the Canterbury Earthquake Recovery Bill, will conclude my first week back at Parliament since the February 22nd quake. I'm very grateful that my colleagues in caucus have provided support so I and others have been able to be on the ground in my electorate in Christchurch, because there is no shortage of work to be done, assisting those constituents whose lives have been nothing less than shattered, residents in suburbs who are still struggling with sewage and housing problems, business people who faced enormous frustration not being able to access their premises. And I have to confess tonight that I'm feeling a little weary, and that is in respect of both definitions of the word. Weary as in W-E-A-R-Y, because as an MP, myself and my electorate staff, to whom I pay homage tonight, have absorbed a lot of the emotions that have been generated by the quake. I think we have seen more tears in recent weeks than in a whole year of soppy movies. I think that I've given more hugs out than Nelson Mandela. And I think that most of us as MPs on the ground in Christchurch have absorbed a lot of anger and diffused a lot of anger and annoyance as we've dealt with frustrated homeowners and business people. And the business people, of course, are not only carrying the loss of premises but the very strong financial stresses of trying to keep businesses alive in the face of frustrations about access to premises and data and files. But that is the job that we do as constituency MPs, and I think that all MPs across Christchurch have worked hard and are working hard to do their best to help. And I particularly want to pay tribute to my colleague Leanne Dalzell, the feisty battler for her very hard-hit electorate out in Christchurch East, to Clayton Cosgrove as our lead spokesperson on earthquake recovery, to Ruth Dyson, who's just a tireless worker for her constituents out in Port Hills, Jim Anderton, who never ceases to be on the case in respect of his constituents, Ken Graham, who brings a very valuable constitutional view to matters in front of this House, and also to acknowledge Jerry Brownlee and Amy Adams, and also the list MPs of Christchurch for the work that's been done. I think we are all feeling a little weary, but we know that this is an ultra-marathon in most respects. And just a few weeks ago on a short quake break, I visited Napier and to look at the recovery there from the 1931 disaster, and had half an hour or so with the Mayor, Barbara Arnott, who conveyed to me the view that she thinks it takes a generation, a full generation, to recover fully from the impacts of a disaster of this scale. And I think she's absolutely right when you consider we are facing a $30 billion rebuild in Christchurch, and a time frame that will stretch across many, many years. And I think that's underlining the critical importance that we as Labor MPs attach to the Canterbury Earthquake Recovery Bill and getting it into the best possible shape. And I have to say I came to this House with some optimism about that process. We hazard a party had negotiated and effectively won the right, if that's what I call it, to a select committee hearing, which we thought was crucial to making sure, given the rapid nature of the passage of this bill, that we at least had some reference back to the community, to the experts, so we could iron out some of the wrinkles that are always likely to emerge in urgent legislation. So it was disappointing, to say the least, as our parliamentary colleague Heather Roy has noted, to arrive at the select committee and discover that we did not have, as we set about that very rapid but important process of trying to make sure the bill had the worst of the fishhooks removed from it. And that's where I come back to the second definition of the word wary, W-A-R-Y. And I thought after last night's first formal and then informal briefing from Minister Jerry Brownlee that we would conclude this bill in a pretty broadly bipartisan spirit, and I'd hoped genuinely for that. And it was, to use the word again, disappointing to get to the third reading stage, the committee stage, and see all of the Labor Party's near about 100 amendments discarded, and that does not bode well for the bill. I think that the bill needs to embody. I do want to say absolutely there is no question absolutely no issue of the need for rapid time. That is the required in at this point. But the government cannot pretend to have some monopoly to be the brains trust on these issues. And to note that of the changes that were brought through in the government's own SOP, only one came from the government itself, plus I think the removal of a comma, and to note that the rest of all of those changes that came through came from that Select Committee process, I think underscores the value of it. And it shouldn't really have had to have been wrangled from the Minister, because there are benefits to him in terms of that process, as rushed as it was, as truncated as it was, and frankly as flawed as it was, as much as there is to the citizens of Christchurch. And the Minister says tonight in his third reading speech, gave us an assurance that he wants to work properly in the cross-party forum. And I will take him at his word on that, even if past experience with effectively what was a cross-party forum following the September 4th quake didn't really work. Ideas were generated, letters were written, sometimes replies were not received, ideas were not picked up. We cannot have that this time round, Minister. We simply have to have all hands on deck. All ideas deserve the courtesy at least of being considered. The government has no monopoly on wisdom, and Christchurch people want nothing less than all of their MPs being able to contribute to the recovery that lies in front of us in the many years that that's involved. I noted too Minister Brownlee's commitment to the community forum and the fact that he is determined that it will be truly representative. And that puts an enormous onus on him because, as the bill defines, he is choosing the 20 representatives or more of that cross-party forum. And I note from the committee stages of the bill, the Minister said that he thought that there need to be consultation with the cross-party forum in respect of the membership of that community forum. And I intend to hold him to that, because I think that that forum is not simply an adjunct to the process. I think that that forum has to be at the heart of the process. And I think the Minister, as one of Catholic origins, would well remember and be aware that the road to another place is paved with a lot of good intentions, but it's the delivery of those good intentions that gets you to that other place. It is, of course, always easier for a government or anybody in authority to issue commands rather than to genuinely consult and engage. But the value of consultation and engagement can be enormously important in bringing about the sorts of the results that you want. And while it's especially tempting when time pressures are upon you to go past genuine engagement, there are huge risks, and we cannot afford to get things horribly wrong in Christchurch as we embark upon our so essential recovery. We are all travelling on the same road in Christchurch towards that recovery, and we can walk together or we can fall behind a shadow. And I say, for Christchurch's sake, we have to have the chance to walk together. And I also have to say, I think we've had a rather stumbling start. The next steps will be instructive. I think that me and my colleagues will be watching very closely to see if truly engagement is possible, if truly the cross-party forum can work, if truly there is an opportunity for real, genuine input, if there is the potential for the community to provide advice and instruction to the Minister and walk alongside him and make sure that we get it right this time. There's a lot in front of us. There's a lot of questions about whether we're actually able to deliver it via this bill. But the Minister's given us his assurance. I accept him at his word. I will hold him to account in respect of that assurance he's given to the House. And from here on, I can only say perhaps it's a case of que sera, sera.
Aaron Gilmore.
Mr. Speaker, it's a pleasure to speak last on this bill. For me,